There's an area underneath the curve, so to speak. There's corporate ladder, and then there's entrepreneurship. And that area I like to call the critical area of patience. If you can toggle your mindset to get through that area, it would eventually lead you to the critical point on the diagram, which is where entrepreneurship, in my mind, exceeds corporate ladder. And that is a sweet spot we want to get to. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I realized I haven't actually done a great introduction of myself other than, here and there letting you know little snippets of my life. So hopefully this video will get you a little bit more on track on who I am and what I'm doing here on YouTube. A couple of weeks back, I decided to take a risk and quit my corporate cushy engineering job. Yay! I had only worked at the job for 13 months before a lot of things fell into place and I was ready to take a risk. I had grown up in a family where all my family members decided to become immigrants to other countries. My parents were immigrants to South Africa. I actually grew up there. And so I have a very high risk tolerance level when it comes to thinking about leaving something that I'm very comfortable with and starting something that I don't understand or don't know. I remember a few weeks ago breaking it to my friends and family that I was going to start a YouTube channel because it's the first thing I thought was very interesting and I wanted to try. And the results were kind of shocking and pretty funny. A couple of my family said to me, "Oh my goodness, you're not even on Facebook and you want to be on YouTube." Other couple of my family decided to say, "Oh, YouTube, isn't that for people who can't find jobs? You have a job, that's not for you." I like to, in my head, graph a lot of bullet points. I think that's honestly a symptom of 6 years of engineering school, so apologies if this is a little bit too nerdy for you, but it makes a little bit more sense in my head. The first graph I'd like to talk about is the corporate ladder. So on the x-axis over here, you have what I understand as growth and finances. So growth and finances I'd like to leave as two separate because sometimes you may have one but lack the other, or you may have the other but lack the one. For this purpose, I think of them as two separate entities, but on the x-axis as a together kind of development. For the y-axis, I labeled it as elapsed time. And what that is just kind of time in your life. So maybe, let's say we take the trajectory of the average lifespan in America, like 70, 75 maybe. 75 years of your life, if you're thinking about starting something new at 20, you're really only looking at like 55 of your lives that you have to explore. So in the corporate world, my first point on the graph is what we know as exploration. So typically this ranges from when you're 20 to 25, you're trying new things, you're starting afresh. The second point is establishment. This is typically when you're 20 to 35 years old, you've decided on a set career path and now you want to try it out. Before I decided that I wanted to switch careers, I was on a path leading to renewable energy. I was trying out renewable energy. That was my establishment exploration kind of, my establishment and exploration time zone. I knew engineering was something that was fun, but I didn't know what exact field yet. And then obviously I'm still in that stage because now I quit. Mid-career is our third point. That happens when you're around 35 to 45. That's when you start to get to a more senior level in your career. That's when you're quote unquote a senior engineer, a senior attorney, or a doctor who now has gone past residency and you're starting to get into a very specialty field. That's at the stage of our lives where we're starting to have kids, we're building a family, and it's often really hard to just leave a cushy job. The fourth point is our late career. So that's now you getting to management. You've gotten to a point where you're past senior level. You know enough to be a manager, but you're not at the stage of your life where you're an expert yet because maybe you've changed jobs a couple of times and you haven't got to a point where in the subject matter field that you're in, you're an expert at. Fifth point is what I like to call stagnant growth. Now this is the age frame where you're maybe 50 to 65 years old. You're now an expert in the field, okay? You have been doing this for the last 30 years. You really know what you're doing. Maybe you've been doing sales. Maybe you've been an attorney. Maybe you have been just a savvy business person. You're an expert in the field now. At this point, you may have made partner at the corporate world that you're being in, or people want to consult you individually, and you start a consulting firm because you know what you're doing. And it's during this time where growth becomes more stagnant, because it's not that you're not growing, it's that your growing becomes so minimal compared to the other stages of your career. The other stages of career, you're still learning, you're developing, you're growing, but this stage of your life as a consultant, as an expert, you're growing very minimally because you know so well of what you do, and your finances are so stable that you're making a lot of money, but it's not at this point where you're always jumping ahead anymore. You're not making huge doses that are drastically different from where you were the year before. And then finally, I see decline or retirement. And this is after 65. You finally left the job and you're wanting to enjoy life, but now growth is slower due to age. So it has been proven psychologically, just the older we get, it's harder to learn something. It's not impossible. It's definitely very possible. It's just not as easy to pick up something new as when you were a kid, just because of the developmental processes of our brain and the changes of our lifestyle. So now you're enjoying life, but you're now living off retirement money that you hopefully have invested and saved up and whatnot yourself. You hopefully have some properties that you can rely on. You hopefully have had a good family. And now there's a little bit of decline in terms of personal growth and also personal finances because you're no longer at your job. Okay, so now we're looking at another graphic called entrepreneurship. So this is, in my head, a more exponential growth, and the rewards are definitely later. Again, you have the x-axis as growth and finance, and y is lapse time. The first stage of entrepreneurship is often grouped with the second stage, and it's development and startup. So maybe in the development stage, initial development, you're thinking about the business. Like I was thinking about perhaps starting a YouTube channel and perhaps starting an online software business or whatnot for the longest time. And I never ever started it until I decided to make a commitment. So this is brainstorming ideas, you're figuring out your finances, you're figuring out if it's a good time to leave your corporate job, and you're taking your time to build up what could lead to a commitment. The second stage is you finally start it up. So you decide to start a business. You don't see much results yet right now because development and startup is so difficult. You're still in the stage of struggle and figuring out what's going on, and life is just hard. The third point is generally called takeoff. So there's finally a tiny bit of growth happening, maybe after 50 videos of a YouTube channel. I finally realized, oh wow, people actually watch my videos. And that stage between development and takeoff could sometimes be years. It is very painful. I'm sure there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I've just started my startup, so we'll see what happens. And then there's growth. So growth could come, in my mind, as two stages, either a very slow growth that you've seen or a sudden growth. Growth is when all the blood, sweat, and tears have reaped off, and maybe on YouTube you suddenly see a booming amount of subscribers and viewers and you're monetized. And that could happen within a couple of years, or it can happen within a couple of months, depending on your time, your effort, etc., and your content. And in terms of business, that could mean your product suddenly just got accepted, you finally have so many investors looking at you, all years of hard work, or it just took a while. So that growth could be in two different stages. And then lastly is maturity, decline, or stagnation. And so any business model, you'll see this is pretty common depending on how you've managed your business, how you've poured into it, if you followed the market trend, if you haven't, who your customers are. You could either mature as a business, unfortunately start to decline if your business wasn't managed well, or hit stagnation where your business is not really growing and maturing but not really declining either. That level of stage is a little bit beyond this video. That really depends on how you've managed business, but for now these are the stages of entrepreneurship I have thought about. There's a trapezium or trapezoid area that I consider myself and a lot of people who are starting a business to be at, and that is my understanding a critical area of patience. So during the time of development to startup of a business, if you're looking at the diagram, there's not much growth happening. There's not much financial growth happening. You're just starting off, you don't know what you're doing. You're just learning. If you're like me, you looked orange in half your videos because you didn't figure out lighting very well. And so you're figuring out things, and people in the corporate world are already climbing. They're climbing maybe to an established career at this point, and every bit of point looks like that they are a lot further along in life than where you are starting your own business. Many people can't look past that, can't get past that. They hit that critical area of patience, and just as they're about to move to growth, they give up. And it's the scariest thing when it comes to a business is when you can't get past that critical area of patience in your heart, because it's like a little stepping stone. You just can't step over it because it feels like years often. And then in my head, there's a time and space where entrepreneurship exceeds corporate job in terms of growth and development and finances. And that is the critical point on our diagram that I like to highlight in red over here. That's the point where you see that people who have started their own business and inventors have poured their lives into it and it worked out, have really reaped rewards greater than people who have maybe sat in corporate jobs because due to finances and also growth. Maybe growth, they have learned so much more than now managing a company versus being managed. And that hitting that sweet spot would be the best, because that's when entrepreneurship pays off, but it takes years of work and for you to really get through the critical area of patience to get there. That doesn't mean that a corporate job is bad. It really does not. Just for my personality, I would prefer to do the latter. I hope this is encouraging, that there's a lot of us in this together. Take care, you guys.